I'm Jim Mackesy. I'm the Director of Jobs with Justice on Long Island, a coalition of 39 organizations comprised of unions and community groups and the faith-based community and student and youth organizations. And I'm happy to say that the Social Justice Alliance at Stony Brook University is our newest member. And so we got together because we got caught wind that Congressman Peter King was coming to campus, and I guess everyone in the group felt that he was not welcome here. So we planned a demonstration to let him know that he's not welcome here because of his anti-people agenda, including trying to privatize Social Security while giving tax breaks to billionaires, to his continued bigotry against immigrants or Muslims, to his campaign of fear-mongering to increase his own political career. And we feel that that's wrong. So for those reasons and a variety of others, we organized a demonstration. And I'm going to pass it over to my friend Charlene. Charlene can tell us a little bit more.
Okay. So I'm Charlene Obernower. I'm one of the organizers for the Social Justice Alliance at Stony Brook University. And for the protest today, we only got wind of it last Tuesday when we had our meeting, so we were organizing very quickly under a lot of pressure to pull out a successful event to get Peter King to really understand where we were standing on this issue and what we felt about him coming to our campus to talk about Homeland Security and to tell us that we are safer now after the war in Iraq and after these anti-immigrant bills are being passed. So we initially had planned to infiltrate the talk and to turn our backs as he was speaking with bright orange shirts that said no one is illegal. But as we found out, we were not let into the talk. So we ended up going on the inside of the Humanities building, which is where the protest was, or where this talk was initially going to be held and where we were going to initially be protesting. We went on the inside of the building and wearing our no one is illegal shirts, we basically marched around in circles and did a relatively disruptive event in which we chanted, telling Peter King that he really wasn't welcome here, that we are not in support of his policies, etc. The people in the talk apparently had heard everything that we said, and when Peter King came out, he walked right through all of the students who were protesting, and we really felt like with this event that he really understood why we were there, but at the same time, he definitely still felt like he could come to Stony Brook University. And I think that it was a really powerful event in the sense that the students got to see what Peter King was lying to us about. The students got to see as Peter King was telling us that, yes, we are safer when there have been reports that said that terrorism has increased since this war. And for Peter King just to be able to splurge all of this anti-Muslim language at us, and for us to just be listening to that was something that we're happy that we didn't have to sit there during his talk and just turn our backs and not say anything. So being on the outside, I think, was definitely good particularly for the people who would be so angered by what he said that they probably wouldn't have been able to contain themselves. So we were definitely happy with the event and with the way that it turned out. And hopefully Peter King won't come back. That's what we were chanting, don't come back, as he was up there leaving. So yeah, I mean, it was good to work with Jobs with Justice. We just affiliated, and this was our first event that we organized together, and I think that definitely went really well. Hopefully, we'll plan more events like this in the future, but not with Peter King, because he's not coming back here.
Ovviamente guadagneranno sicuri, serviranno di president of Long Island's Brian he called me and said, this guy wants to be my
Well, this is for handicap. This area is here is for handicap. He's here, but he didn't say his seat. Oh, wonderful.
I don't even know. Here. Now, as far as I know, I don't see
I have some. I gotta go to the bathroom.
Yes, she went that way. You're gonna have to either hold it or take your chances. Come on out. Step back. Oh, there we go.
Buon pomeriggio. Good afternoon. My name is Mario Mignone, and I am the director of the Center for Italian Studies. It is with great pleasure that I welcome you to this very special event. We are co-sponsoring this special event with an important Italian-American organization called NIAF, National Italian-American Foundation. The main office is in Washington, and I must say that we as Stony Brook have a strong relationship with NIAF. They have supported us for scholarship projects. They support us to close the fundraising for the endowed chair in Italian-American Studies, launched by UNICO. And lately, we have worked together on projects of grants appropriations. I was the chair for 2 years of NIAF grants from India, and I was very happy to work with John Marino from NIAF. Today, we have here on the campus 2 representatives from NIAF, John Marino, but also the president of NIAF, Salvatore Zizza, and he is going to introduce our speaker, especially the guest today. So therefore, it is with great pleasure that I will Mr. Salvatore Zizza.
Presidente della NIAF che parla italiano. Congressman, that means that I'm the first president of NIAF who speaks Italian. So, with that said, we are here today to introduce you to NIAF as to what our programs are, when we started, what our mission is, and then we will be happy to introduce Congressman Peter King. We started 31 years ago with the thought of promoting the positives of Italian Americans, what we have contributed not only to this country, but to the world in general. And we have continuously accentuated in every area, whether it be the political arena, the academic arena, the medical arena, the legal arena, those that are capable to go forward and to go onward should not be prohibited from doing that because they have a vowel at the end of their name. But our focus is really to promote the Italian culture. And that's why Mary and Eugene talked about what we do with universities. We have this lecture series that we go around to various universities all over the United States to promote Italian American studies, and we give grants and we give scholarships. One of the programs that we have is a discovery program where we give about 100 Italian American students from around the United States the opportunity to go to Italy in various regions for a 2-week period and understand more about their roots, or maybe their parents or their grandparents, so that they can really understand the Italian culture. Coming back, we bring back about 100 students from Italy to learn about democracy, to learn about capitalism, which they're really not very familiar with in Europe. That's one of the programs. We then have a mentoring program where successful people in the disciplines that I spoke about mentor young college students like yourselves. Representative King has received a greater number of votes than any congressional candidate on Long Island in each of the 7 races. In 2004, he won with 63% of the vote. Representative King is currently the chairman of the Homeland Security Committee and also serves on the International Relations Committee. Congressman King has also been a leader in the ongoing effort to have more Homeland Security funding based on threat analysis and strong support of the war against international terrorism, both at home and abroad. During his years in Congress, Representative King has attained a reputation for independence. Calling Representative King a profile in courage, the Long Island Newsday has said King's outspoken integrity sets him apart. He says what he means and he means what he says. The rare trade in Washington. The New York Daily News says Representative King, straight talk is King's strength. He is the one congressman with his head on straight and his patriotism intact. Prior to serving in Congress, Representative King was elected to 3 terms as the controller of Nassau County. Before serving in county government, Representative King had extensive experience as a practicing attorney and civic leader. He began his political career in November 1977 by winning election to the Hampstead Town Council. He authored 3 published novels. He was born April 5th, 1944. I hope you don't mind that. He's a graduate of St. Francis College and a graduate of the University of Notre Dame Law School. A lifelong resident of New York, lived in Nassau County for almost 40 years. Representative King and his wife, Rosemary, reside in Seaford. They have 2 adult children, Sean and Eric, and 1 grandson. It is now my pleasure to give to you Representative Chairman King.
Thank you, Mr. President, and we thank NIAF and we thank Stony Brook University for putting this together, allowing me to be here. I especially want to thank you for finding one of the few good things the Newsday has said about me. Actually, I was told coming in here, maybe some people were crazy about me. Who could it possibly be? Then I see a former veteran Newsday here, so this is my question. But seriously, I am delighted to be here. I was asked to speak on the issue of Homeland Security, the war against terrorism, the progress we've made, where we have to go, the issues that we face, the problems we confront, and that's what I'll try to do. I'll speak for about 20 minutes or so and try to answer whatever questions you might have. First of all, as far as war against terrorism is concerned, we are significantly safer today than we were 5 years ago. We are safer in 2006 than we were in 2001. The airports are safer, ports are safer, mass transit is somewhat safer. There's much more cooperation between at the federal level, between the FBI, the CIA, and the DIA, and various intelligence agencies. Much of that information now is being shared with local police, so there is much more cooperation that way. There's significant cooperation between our intelligence agencies and overseas intelligence agencies. We know that no 2 attacks are ever the same. We know the enemy is constantly adjusting, but it's safe to say that if we had the systems in place today, 5 years ago, the 9/11 attacks probably would not have occurred. There's no guarantees, but just the much more extensive cooperation between us and overseas intelligence, the sharing of information with the CIA and the FBI would make it very unlikely that would be able to go ahead. However, as we're adapting, so the enemy adapts, and we have to constantly be on our guard, trying to connect the dots, trying to find out what could be next, try to head off whatever we can. Certainly we've seen some successes just in recent months. We had, up in Toronto, we had 15 homegrown terrorists who were arrested, who were plotting against the Canadian government. We've had 2 students from Atlanta, Georgia, down in Georgia Tech, who were arrested in May. One was born in this country, one was born overseas and raised here. Again, both homegrown terrorists. The plot to attack the PATH subways, that was disclosed in May, early June of this year. And also, of course, the London plot, the airline plot out of London was stopped. Again, an example of something that probably would not have been stopped 5 years ago, but it was headed off this time. On the other hand, there have been significant tragedies. Certainly the July attacks, July of '05 attacks in the London Underground, the Madrid bombings of March of 2004, just 2 examples. Obviously, attacks in Bali back in 2002 shows that, again, it's an ever-present danger. It's an enemy which is anywhere and everywhere at the same time. It's an enemy which transcends borders. It can be an enemy that lives amongst us. It can be an enemy that's plotting from overseas. Most of the Al-Qaeda leadership, the significant Al-Qaeda leadership, has been either captured or killed. However, of course, Bin Laden and Zawahiri is still out there. But there's no doubt that while they've been thrown off stride, and Al-Qaeda Central has been significantly weakened, there's still a new danger is having these amorphous groups, these homegrown, self-generated groups forming, which in some ways is good. They don't have the same sophistication and the same training as Al-Qaeda has had. But on the other hand, they also are more erratic, and they're harder to track. We're not certain who they are, and they can pop up at different locations. So that is a real issue we have to confront. Now, here in New York, we are lucky. The NYPD has 1,000 police in their counterterrorist league. The city of Chicago has Suffolk County Police has incredibly effective counterterrorism unit, working very closely with the NYPD on the Joint Terrorism Task Force. And that you can really feel gratified about, because it's very likely that the next attack, when it comes, and New York is the top of every target list. When you look at intelligence analyses, New York is up there, and you have to drop all the way down before you even get to number 2. It's only like 2 different charts. Many different charts. New York's on a chart by itself. And then you get cities like Chicago, Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., Houston, Texas, places like that, Baltimore to some extent. But New York is up there by itself. Now, as a result of that, we try to figure where can the next attack come, because New York will probably be targeted. And when we talk about New York, we're really talking about the New York metropolitan area. New York, the city of New York, Nassau County, Suffolk County, Westchester County, and probably a good part of Rockland County, in the New York metropolitan area. And the very next attack, or the next attack, will come like the London attacks did from the suburbs, where it's actually planned in the suburbs and then brought into the city to be attacked. That is probably the most likely scenario, which is why it's so central, so vital that the Suffolk County Police are doing the job that they do. This is no longer just within the cities. We have a large population centers that the threat is coming from. Now, as far as the weapons we're using, I strongly support the Patriot Act. The Patriot Act is absolutely essential. I strongly support the NSA surveillance. It's absolutely essential that we monitor phone calls being made into this country from people that we believe are terrorists. I believe the President has the inherent constitutional power. The courts have held that. And I think it was really disgraceful, if not a violation. Okay. You need this? Okay. If it goes? Okay. Good? It's fine. Okay. Oh yeah, this meeting was disgraceful. I think it violated the Espionage Act. The New York Times published at the time of war on the front page a classified top secret program which was working, which was uncovering terrorism, which was a significant help to save American lives. Even more reprehensible was the New York Times when they disclosed the SWIFT program, which is the program they were using to track terrorist assets through banking systems. And they disclosed that on page 1. Because there they couldn't even hide behind the veneer of it being illegal. They acknowledged it was legal. They acknowledged it was working. and yet they still put it on page 1, which caused significant harm to the national interests of the United States, because while Al-Qaeda knew that we were trying to monitor financial transactions, they did not know the extent of it, and a number of the countries and banks involved that were cooperating with us did not want that known. So that has caused significant problems. It makes it much more difficult for us to get future allies to work with us because of that. And the New York Times is very proud of itself. I think it was a disgrace. What they did in time of war is absolutely reprehensible and indefensible. At the very least, the reporters who reported the story report before a grand jury. They should be asked who their sources were, and if they don't give up the sources, they should be put in jail, cited in contempt. Cited in contempt, put in jail. It's just an absolute disgrace what they did. Now, as far as overseas, we have some allies who are incredibly effective with us. Great Britain is a very, very close ally. Israel is a very close ally. Believe it or not, even countries like France and Germany, even under the Schroeder government, were very cooperative because they realize the internal threat that they face in Muslim communities in their countries, and they share intelligence with us. They want to know what we have. They are probably more cooperative than anyone in French and Germany, and also Spain is very cooperative. Italy is very cooperative. And the Middle East, Jordan and Egypt are extremely cooperative, and Australia and Singapore are also very cooperative. So this is what's out there. This is the terrain. This is what we face. Also, there's been issues that have been raised against me, and I'll address them head on today. Charges I made against the Islamic Center of Long Island in Westbury, where you have officials there, with prominent people, there's a faith director, the co-president, saying that there's no real evidence that Al-Qaeda carried out the attacks, that Muslims carried out the attacks, that Jews may have carried out the attacks, the CIA may have carried out the attacks, that God may have involved in the attacks. And to me, that is disgraceful. That was one of the leading mosques on Long Island had the top people in their ranks making those charges, and no one at all in the mosque to this day calling them on it or criticizing them for it. And to me, that is something that should be discussed openly. We shouldn't just consider interfaith dialogue and hold in hand and feel good about each other. We should be able to discuss these things directly. And the fact is that we don't. When I raise these issues, Newsday, which is even more irresponsible than ever, actually accused me of starting a religious war. They said that I was being prejudiced and could not even rebut one charge that I made. And yet that's the world we live in today, where political correctness trumps national security, trumps honesty, and we have the newspaper on Long Island being an accessory to all that. So it's an interesting political thing. But I would say that we have to face up to the fact that we are engaged in a life and death struggle. It's a struggle with civilizations. It's a struggle against an enemy which uses any tactic against us. And it's a war being fought on many fronts, in many ways. And it's essential we as a nation stand together. We can obviously have differences about tactics. We have to realize this is a real threat. It's not made up. It's not make-believe. It's an absolutely real threat. And it's a threat which we saw the stark reality of it on September 11th. And it can be replicated at any time. We don't know when the next attack is going to come or where. We're monitoring it as best as we can. Try to connect the dots. But there is no guarantee at all. Again, we had some significant successes, but there's no guarantees at all. In fact, there's no doubt we are going to be attacked again. It's a question of when and where, and we can head it off. If it does happen, we can minimize it. That's the reality. So with that, why don't I wrap up what I'm saying and try to answer any questions. I'm sure that not all of you are in love with me, and you may want to share something that gives us most quickly. So with that, why don't I just turn it over? Want me to moderate it? Or do you want to okay? That's good.
Yeah, hi. SB Statesman here. What do you call it? I have a question about the recent comment you made about 85% of the mosques being extremist run. Where exactly did you conduct the study? What agents did you use? What questions did you ask?
The question is, I made a statement several times that 85% of the mosques in this country are controlled by extremists. And my basis for saying that was Sheikh Kobani, who was testified before the State Department back in 2000 at a conference they called.
Who was that?
Sheikh Kobani.
Sheikh?
Yes, Sheikh Kobani, who's head of the National Organization of Muslim Society. I'll get the exact name for you. He was brought down during the Clinton administration to testify before the State Department. He said at that stage that unfortunately more than 80% of the mosques in this country have been taken over by radical leadership, radical extremist leadership. And my experience since then, especially since 2001, is in speaking to the police and speaking to law enforcement, is the abysmal lack of cooperation from so many mosques in this country. People not coming forward. And I use the Islamic Center on Long Island just as an example where the interfaith director was saying Jews could have been involved in the attack on September 11th, using that, and there's any number of others which are under surveillance that I'm aware of.
But was the study conducted? You said 85% of mosques.
I'm basing a
The
specific
U.S.
number
Department
on
of
an
State,
expert.
U.S. Department of State says that there's 1,209 mosques in the United States. This was given in 2001 off their own website, U.S. Department of State. Did you have an agency go to each and every single mosque and conduct a study? No?
No, there's no
So you can't confirm that was 85%, correct?
I am basing it on the testimony of an expert who was a Muslim himself.
Oh, testimony of one person, correct? Just
He
one
is an
person.
expert on the
He's
issue,
an expert.
and based on my own observations in dealing with law enforcement officials across the country, throughout New York and across the country, with the abysmal lack of cooperation from mosques in this country. Yes, sir.
Last year I attended a town meeting where our congressman in this district conducted. I asked him a question. I was very unsatisfied. Tim Bishop. My late wife's cousin was a member of Washington. He told us, this is going back about 7, 8 years ago, that every time they would make an arrest, the then INS would tell them let it go. When people were arrested, illegally crossing the border from Mexico, but regardless of what their ethnic was, they were told to let them go by another agency of the United States government. I wonder if you know something about that?
Well, it basically was the policy. It was called catch and release. There's more than enough facilities here, and it felt easier to just basically release them. That policy is for large extent India. They now, the overwhelming majority are detained and they're returned to the country they came from. If it's Mexico, they're flown deep into the country. There's other countries, whether it's in South America or Asia or Europe, they're actually sent back to those countries. There's some countries like China, which gives us a hard time. But for the most part, the other countries are cooperative. And we also built more detention facilities. We have many more border patrol agents. The number of border patrol agents has gone up significantly. We're using unmanned aerial vehicles. Walls being constructed, so there is much more being done to stop the illegal immigration at the border. But it definitely was a policy of catch and release. Yeah.
First of all, I would say I support everything you're saying.
Why don't we just end the meeting right now?
I just have a question about what's being done about like the threat of Iran and North Korea, how they're saying that they're gonna, get close to the coast with like compartment boats and ships and maybe possibly like launch a nuclear weapon at New York City. Like, is there anything that
Yeah, there's really two different aspects, actually several different aspects in each country. And there's the overseas threat, and there's also the domestic threat. Overseas, Iran and North Korea, the differences are Iran is in a very unstable part of the world. North Korea is actually a very stable part of the world. And North Korea is surrounded by China, Russia, Taiwan, South Korea, Japan. So the threat from Korea is that they actually launch an attack or that they sell nuclear materials to terrorist groups or rogue states. That's the threat from North Korea. The only way we can effectively stop North Korea, short of really a nuclear conflagration, is for China to assert its powers. China provides most of the oil and a large percentage of the food that goes to North Korea. If China used that leverage, it could stop this overnight. Now, China, up till now, has been reluctant for two reasons. One, they enjoy the fact that the U.S. has been kept off balance. Even though China wants to work with us, they also like the idea of us being sort of on defense. And secondly, they're afraid if they impose an embargo on China, on North Korea, it would cause in fact, a famine. And you have millions of North Koreans who are across the border to China, which they don't want either. So China has been sort of holding back. Now, however, that North Korea either has a nuclear weapon, because we're still not certain on the test if it has a nuclear weapon or not, but if not, they're very close to it. What China is concerned right now is Japan and South Korea, especially Japan, going nuclear. And the last thing China wants, even more than the less than North Korea getting weapons to Japan, then you would really have a chance of nuclear showdown in the Pacific. And there's a long history of hatred and brutality in China, mostly because Japan against China. So I think that will cause China to get more engaged, and it's up to the U.S. also to use our diplomatic leverage to get China more engaged. Russia can also be helpful. This could be a good cop, bad cop routine, because Japan could be in fact, the bad cop for nuclear. The U.S. could be the good cop, and China could be the ones to say that they have to do it because Japan is making it do it. As far as Iran, that in some ways is more difficult because it's more unstable in the area. There are no major countries surrounding Iran, no major nuclear, no major military powers except Israel. And again, small countries compared to Iran. We have said we will not allow Iran to become a nuclear state. It will be easier. It's not easy when it comes to military, but less difficult to take military action against Iran than what it is North Korea. It comes to that. France would be much more helpful in that, so the Russia could too, if they want to. Now, the threat domestically is that any of that nuclear material be transferred to terrorist groups and then brought into the U.S. on a ship, between U.S. port primarily. And that is, now, I'll give you some positive news there. We passed the first ever port security bill last week, which is going to provide for many more inspections overseas. It's going to involve us making arrangements with countries overseas to do inspections there. And then also doing random checks as we come into this country. Also, we will, by the end of next year, 98% of the ports covering 98% of the goods we ship into this country will have radiation portal monitors, which means that no nuclear device can be brought out of the port into the country now. The bad news there is it's still walk from the port, but at least it can be brought into the country. That's like the last wall of defense. Over here. So the oh, you're okay, you're in front row. Department of Homeland Security, as far as food supply, that is also one of the, again, real issues. The Department of Homeland Security works with the agricultural department and does random inspections. You're talking about terrorist attack on food? Yeah. Yeah, I know, because there's also natural E. coli. We are, well, not, the Department of Homeland Security does work closely with the agricultural department. But again, that is more difficult because there's a large food chain. But that is something we're very aware of. It's monitored. That's where intelligence becomes very important. And it's definitely working with local authorities, trying to pick up anything that seems out of the ordinary at all. And again, being engaged. If a terrorist cell gets into this country and decides to poison food supply in a certain area, it's difficult to stop it. If they get in here without us knowing. That would be the individual attack. On a wide-scale basis, we should be able to stop it. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, hi. I'm in the local peace group here on Long Island, it's talking, and I want to know if the Division of Homeland Security, the Long Island Bureau, is monitoring the activities of peace groups where they have vigils, marches, speeches, etc., etc.
No, certainly not that I'm aware of at all. That is not in the scope. Unless we felt that something from Al-Qaeda was infiltrated, then it would be mandated by the FBI. Any organization that's infiltrated by Al-Qaeda is going to be watched by the FBI. They should be.
We are United States citizens, and are you saying that there are no lists, as far as you know, there are no surveillance groups?
I didn't say that. U.S. Bureau of Homeland Security. If it is believed that an agent of a foreign power is involved, if someone's on the terrorist watch list, then certainly they'll be monitored. They should be. Wouldn't you want them to be? You really want Mohammed Atta walking around inside your group? Wouldn't you want to know about it?
What's your stop?
Here you go.
We have a statement that I firmly hope is true, which is that the safety we were talking about, and two-part question about that. First of all, it seems to me that a lot of the homes are areas that really make us feel safe without being safe. So that is preventing from being The second question is, given that there are more and more terrorists being fostered by the United States policy, can you really say that the net effect is that we're actually safe?
We are safe. I don't accept the fact that.
More security is more safe.
What's that?
More security doesn't mean more safe.
First of all, I think the fact that we are engaging terrorists around the world, plus the United States. You know, nobody was in Iraq in the 1990s. The World Trade Center was attacked in 1983. It was attacked in 2001. So people who use that argument, it's a pretty backwards argument. They're out to get us no matter what. And they are more energized by weakness than by power. Pulling out from Somalia probably had more to do with the World Trade Center being attacked, and Cobalt Towers being attacked, and the African embassies being attacked, and the USS Cole being attacked, and military action. Having said that, we have been attacked in 5 years, and the airports are safe. And the fact that I can go down the whole list, ports are safer, mass transit is safer, rail is safer. But having said that, obviously there's vulnerabilities. And the only way to really stop them is to kill them before they get here, or apprehend them when they do get here, and you do that by electronic surveillance, do that by enforcing the Patriot Act, and you also do that by being aggressive in going after them overseas.
You don't tell what's going on in Iraq as part of using the battle.
No, I think if you read the National Intelligence Estimate, it says that if we defeat terrorists in Iraq, it will be a major defeat for terrorism across the board, and if democracy can succeed in any way, that will also be a major defeat for terrorism. Yes, sir?
Do you favor a timetable to remove the troops from Iraq?
I wouldn't say what it is. It's giving the enemy a chance to run out the clock. First of all, we should not leave until...
I will favor it. Anytime.
It depends on the situation is. We're still in Germany 60 years later, we're still in Korea 50 years later. No one wants to say that they more than have to. But to say we're going to leave by 1 year or 2 years or 3 years, give the enemy an idea what the plan is. Having said that, my goal would be to, as quickly as possible, have the Iraqi army and the Iraqi police able to maintain a reasonably secure country in a reasonably democratic society. That would be the goal to get us out of it.
We will to
Why don't I just say one more? Oh, you tell me? Why don't I just do one more quick one later?
Yes, you mentioned certain times we were at war, and I wondered if we are at war, why is it that we are continuing with access to most property? We don't have free draft. We are creating other people to ask us and to sacrifice for this war. It doesn't feel like a war. It feels like everybody really is different.
If you're busy with the troops, it's a walk for them, and I've been to Iraq, sure, let me answer your question, first questions. The reason we have tax cuts is that's what drives the economy. Last year's tax revenues increased 14%.
For the wealthy, not for the middle class.
So this is the point I'm making. Actually, that's not true. The poor we've taken incredibly large wealth tax rolls altogether under this policy.
But we still pay Social Security taxes.
Well, we're talking about income tax. You're better off than they were before under the tax. Then you won't be so much guidance. You go for life. The important thing here is that you're saying you have increased taxes. By increasing taxes, you get less revenues. By cutting taxes, you get more revenues. In the last 2 years, income tax revenues, this is money coming into the government to pay for social programs, is increased by 14% last year, 11% this year. That's over the year before. That is far more than the amount that was cut in taxes. That's why we have the strongest economy in the world, the fastest growing economy of any major industrialized country. That is what we need to go forward to fight the war against terror, because revenues coming in, and the tax cuts have done that. They've gone up dramatically. Now, as far as the draft, the reason we don't have a draft is because the draft can be counterproductive. No military person wants a draft. It's not like when anybody here was in the Army years ago, we were learning how to shoot an M1 or M14 or M16. The level of sophistication, the training is required. The draft would not work, and it's not needed. That's the reason. I want to draft people so they can say everyone's in the Army. Not one general, no, it's not, first of all, let me say it's not one general wants a draft. Not one general wants a draft. Because the volunteer army is working. These are loyal, patriotic people who are in there, they're meeting all the quotas and they're in there. And as far as the generals, there's a real debate. First of all, no generals are asking for more troops that are in active duty. You know, some may say we needed them. If we use more troops, then you're going to have people saying the U.S. isn't occupying power. So no matter what you do, you're going to have people criticizing. The fact is, and you say we need more, you want to come out very good draft. That's a good big thing. You can espouse that if you want to. The fact is that I don't believe the draft will work. I lived during the draft. it's not because of people not making the sacrifice. The draft is ineffective. This isn't the old army where you just had grunts. It took a lot of courage, but it didn't take a lot of as much skill as it does today. You meet a guy who's a PFC or a woman who's a spec 4, and the talent they have, the computer talents they have, incredible. I mean, this is a very, very modern, sophisticated army, which is why we interlock with them. You see, it's just amazing what they're capable of doing.
Is that why we're so successful in our army right now?
We've actually been extraordinary success here. We're really happy with it. Oh, they can see it themselves. It really is extraordinary. Now, listen, is it tough? Are we guaranteed to win? No, we're not. But the success has been extraordinary. Certainly, to be there, to see the first democratic government in place, to see the shopping centers, to see the amusement parks, to see the restaurants. And so, what we see on television is not the full picture. It's tough, it's dangerous, yes it is. But it certainly has been, to me, no one can possibly criticize the military for what they're doing.
I do not criticize the military.
You say it's not working. They've achieved a lot. And then you told they'll
The
fail.
generals are saying it is not working.
Some generals are. Generals who have.
I am sorry, but do not insult our soldiers by saying that I was disappointed.
You said they didn't do the job. I've said they've done a good job.
I asked you, if we are at war,
Right.
why are our people not being asked to sacrifice? Why is this not a war like World
If
War
you want to sacrifice for the sake of sacrifice, the fact is raising taxes you've heard already. Raising the taxes you've heard all the time.
Now, tell me, why are we not being asked to sacrifice?
What sacrifice do you want to make?
Practice sacrifice.
It's not a sacrifice, it's counterproductive.
We were told that we do not have enough troops. We
Okay,
were
now,
told
now,
that
I was, you know, you told me in circles.
we would not have.
Let me tell you, if you find out what's going on, come back and talk.
Destroying the world wherever it can.
Everywhere we go!
85% of the mosques, of 1,209 mosques that the United States government recognizes, you can find it on our website, the U.S. state, that the U.S. Department of State, you can find it. It says 1,209 mosques. This is 85% of them are run by extremists. And he admitted that he didn't send an agency or an agent, anything like that, to a single mosque to take a survey. He admitted, he just said no. I mean, he's lying to the public, he's trying to create fear, it's all propaganda, it's all BS. I mean, what do you want from the guy? That's about it.
Quoted Sheikh Khabani. If you go to any single Muslim from Long Island to California to Seattle to Florida, who is Sheikh Khabani? No one will be like, who is this guy? This just one guy told him that 85% of the mosques here in America are run by extremists. But if you personally, if anyone just goes to any mosques, if you go to Islamic Association Long Island right here, or Islamic Center of Long Island, or the Melville Islamic Center, we'll welcome you with open arms. That one single person there, he doesn't represent all of American Muslims. There are about 6 million Muslim Americans here in America. This one guy does not represent. You have to go to like an organization like ISNA, Islamic Society of North America, which represents the majority of all the Muslims here in America. If you go and ask them about Khabani, he'd be like, no, he doesn't represent us at all.
Okay, so what is that? Islamic Association of America?
Islamic Society of North America, ISNA, ISNA. There's also another organization that has over 600 mosque membership, ICNA, Islamic Circle of North America. If you ask them what they say about Khabani, this guy doesn't represent the Muslims here in America. And Peter King quoted him, just one guy. And then he had to say it in newspapers, had to quote him. And now all Americans think 85% of the mosques here in America are run by radical extremists.
Understood. What's your name?
Amir, A-M-I-R.
A-M-I-R. Last name?
Sahib, S-A-H-I-B.
Okay. Student here?
Yeah, I'm a student.
Would you say you were involved in the protest they just had?
No, I don't. I was an attendee at the lecture.
Okay, gotcha.
I wasn't part of the protest. All lies of propaganda. There are children that are starving. There's over 1,000 orphans in Iraq because their fathers went into the Iraqi police and they were killed by these extremists. The American government are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. The army, they have no idea what's going on.
Is it possible you have both things at the same time?
What do you mean both things?
That you have things that are improving, amusement parks, schools,
yeah,
and
you have that.
Violence
yeah,
too.
you have violence too, but majority of Iraqi people, if you ask them, the innocent people who are they're trying to get bread and water, and they can't even get that. They don't care about extremism or getting like a government established. All they want is food. If you go to Iraq right now, take a video camera. I'm sure you can see it for yourself. Go to Baghdad. You'll find ghettos of like orphans all over the streets. I've talked to Iraqi people that have come to America who are exchange students studying here, and they told me it's really a sad situation there.
And the other thing, just going back to the mosque for a minute, he says 85% run by extremists, obviously.
He just quoted one guy, and that one guy does not represent the Muslim majority.
Would you take any kind of guess how many are? Would you say that any are run by extremists?
I'll admit there are probably a few, maybe 2% out of the 100% that have extremist ideologies. But like, it's 5 years after 9/11. You would think the CIA, FBI would get all of them here in America. Even Peter King even said, he's like, we're much safer now. We're really safe. So even if we're much safer, how can there be 85%? That's 85% of 1,200 mosques in America are quote unquote radical extremists. And then he's like 5 years later after 9/11, we're very safe. We can go on the subway safely. We can take airplanes safely. So if we're safe, then how come 85% of the mosques are supposedly radical extremists? Isn't the FBI or CIA or Homeland Security supposed to get rid of it by now?
Seems to me.
That's why I'm waiting for him, because I want to tell him, this guy Khabani, he does not represent the Muslims in America. And if you ask any Muslim student here on campus, who is Khabani? Just simple question. Who is Sheikh Khabani? They'd be like, I never heard of him in a whole entire life.
Do you know who he is? Or
yeah, I know because I do research and stuff. But if you ask them who is like Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, Imam Zaid Shakir, Imam Surhaj Wahaj, these people are, you don't see them on the news, but I guarantee you, 90% of the Muslim students know who Sheikh Hamza Yusuf is. Zaytuna Institute in California. They're really famous. And those type of scholars, they're very modern.
And that's Sheikh Hamza Youssef. What were the other ones that you offered?
Imam Zaid Shakir, Zaidshakir, and Sheikh Hamza Youssef, Hamzayusuf. He's actually a convert. He's an American. So is Imam Zaid Shakir. He's an African American convert to Islam. These people here are homegrown scholars of Islam. They're Americans. They were born here. Hamza Youssef was I think he was Catholic, then he converted to Islam. Zaid Shakir was part of the Air Force. He was part of the United States Air Force, and then he converted to Islam. So these people are American, and you don't see them on CNN, but you have this Kobani guy who's not even American, he's from Turkey. He probably can't even speak English that well. And he's saying 85% of the mosques are radical extremists. Probably got paid off or something. Anything to please what the politicians are trying to put on their agenda.
Now, what about the idea of him speaking at all? You know, the protesters seem to be trying to drown him out.
Well, actually, I
didn't. Should he be allowed to speak?
I didn't know about the protest. I actually wanted to hear what he spoke. I mean, they closed the doors so you could hear, but the protest, I wasn't part of it. I didn't know what actually was happening. But I guess those people have concerns too. I guess they just wanted to hopefully. But he should be able to speak.
I spoke with the guy who organized it before the event, and he said he should be able to speak anyway.
Yeah, well, there's extremists on all sides.
Gotcha.
You'll find all types of people. There are extremists, Americans, there are hardcore. There are people on the border down south killing innocent Mexican people just trying to get some food because they're crossing the border to get jobs where U.S. corporations are hiring them. It's illegal immigration. It's cheap labor. If you ask like all these companies, Coca-Cola, Nike, and all of them, I'm pretty sure they'd be like, yo, I don't care. I need the workers to do a job. But yet you have these Minutemen.
You're referring to the Minutemen?
Yeah, the Minutemen. They just randomly. It's vigilantism.
Gotcha.
That's extremist.
That seemed to be a concern of the protesters too.
Yeah.
But safe to say that even though you might agree with a lot of what the protesters believe, you want to hear this guy come and speak. You don't want
he's a figure, so American people are gonna listen to him, and if people like him are educating American people, that's bad. Like, we need to educate him. That's why I'm waiting here to talk to him. Like, I'm not gonna yell and scream in his face. I just want to let him know that this guy Kobani does not represent the Muslim majority here. He does not. If you ask any Muslim student on campus or go to any mosque on Long Island who is Kobani, they'll be like, I don't know who this guy is.
All right, very good. Good to talk to you. And a lot to the story. Thanks.
What's your name?
Oh, Pete. Nice to see the results.
Oh, there's times I live in Stony Brook.
Fear-mongering.
This is my name and my email address.
Right here?
Yeah.
I don't know him personally, but he's a gentleman.